Second seal is all contaminated phenomena are suffering. Sakchi tamchi dukharwa. We'll use that. Contaminated phenomena are suffering. Why is it suffering? Contaminated phenomena are suffering. Why is it suffering? Because here you have to understand when we say contaminated, the word contaminate. Contaminate here refers to actions, emotions, and thoughts conditioned by ignorance. The other one is selfishness and attachment. Because it is mistaken, attachment, ignorance. Every dualistic mind is a mistaken mind. Because this mind doesn't recognize the nature of things. That's why dualistic mind, mistaken. Now, there we go. You have to understand, right? You have to understand. I mean, as you know, the Buddhist, the teachings of Buddha describe reality in two ways. Right now we're talking about mind, dualistic mind. So that's what we call the relative mind, relative truth, which is how things appear. And then we have the ultimate mind, the ultimate truth, which is how things truly are. So we have both this relative mind and we have ultimate mind. The relative mind, Buddhist point of view, is incorrect way of perceiving things. Whatever is experienced in the state of the relative mind, that is under the power of ignorance, again, selfishness and attachment. Therefore, dualistic mind, mistaken. And then we have ultimate mind, of course. Ultimate mind is a state of nature awareness, and it is without dualistic thinking. And whatever is experienced in that state, ultimate mind, is always things as they truly are. That's nature, the reality, So it is important to understand this two, the difference between this two-state mind. Then you will see this contaminated suffering. Now we have two different, these truths, right? But this doesn't mean that these two truths are two totally separate entities, It's not like that, because actually the nature of relative truth, the relative mind itself is ultimate truth. But if we don't recognize it, then two separate things, And then a lot of problems arise in our mind from not being able to distinguish between these two aspects of reality. So this relative mind, the dualistic mind, creates a lot of these expectations, right? A lot of expectations, a lot of hope, a lot of fear and worries. Therefore, whenever there is a dualistic mind, then there is a hope and fear. For that reason, the second seal of Dharma, Buddhists conclude that all contaminated phenomena are painful. Do you understand? For that reason. It means that any action motivated by disturbing emotions result in pain. Because everything we create through our emotions is at the end painful. I will quote you. This is Johnson Chintzes wrote in his book. He said that all emotions are pain because they involve because they involve dualism. From Buddhist point of view, as long as there is a subject and object, as long as there is a separation between subject and object, as long as you think they're independent and then function as subject and object, that is an emotion, which includes everything, almost every thought that we have. So he described, the emotions. All the emotions are pain. So, do you remember this is the teaching of the second noble truth, right? Same thing, the teaching of the second noble truth. The cause of suffering. The cause of suffering. You see, in the Buddhist teachings, when we investigate for the cause of suffering, we find that our mind, under the control of ignorance, selfishness, and attachment or desires, so suffering and happiness. The Tibetan teachers used the definition for happiness and suffering is, they say, yang wang and rang wang. Rang wang, rang means self. Wang means power or freedom or power. Rang means self. Wang means power or freedom. Yang Wang, Yang is other. Wang is again power or freedom. So it means as long as one is in control, one is happy. But as long as someone else controls, one is unhappy. Therefore, the definition of happiness is when you have full control, freedom, rights, and peace. For example, what is life? What is life? The ordinary life is actually, again, this Yawa. It means always someone else control. Our ordinary life is Yawa. It means someone else control. Therefore, it is suffering. Suffering arises because the life is collection of different experience through the obscurations. When we say Yan, Yang Wang means like Yan is others. It doesn't mean somebody else. This other means these all the obscurations that we have control our life, our mind. That's its Yang Wang. So as long as Yang Wang control someone else control our life, is suffering. So because of these obscurations, right? When we talk about the obscuration, there are four kinds of, I think, four kinds of obscuration. So the obscuration of karma, obscuration of disturbing emotions. You remember this, right? Obscuration of habitual patterns, habitual tendencies. Then it is suffering. This is Yang. This is we call it Yang. Then it's suffering. This is contaminated, impure, obscurations. If life is Rawa, then it is happy. Rawa means self, freedom, power. Then it's happy. It's peace. Because it is free from all of these obscurations, All these mental afflictions, desire, what do you call it? Selfishness, as well as all other, the obscuration completely eliminated, then there is an ultimate peace. We'll talk about this, but that is the enlightenment. So you see, the Buddha meditated continually, and he searched for the cause of enlightenment. And he said that he was in India, Bodh Gaya. I have seen deeply that nothing can be itself alone. That everything depends each other. So this is the essence of emptiness, right? So the Buddha, this is Sakchi Tamche Dungarwa, all contaminated suffering, phenomena suffer. The Buddha spent 49 days after he enlightened, in Bodhigaya, he's enjoying the peace of his realization, He searched all this, the cause of enlightenment and cause of suffering, all that, 6 years. And then his recognition, the realization developed. And he said under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, he became a Buddha. So think about this. On one side we have suffering, on the other side we have happiness, right? This is our life. We have to accept that. This is our life. Suffering, happiness, that's our life. This is not enlightenment though. Your view, your ideas, enlightenment and Buddhist enlightenment is very different. I will tell you this. Now, this second seal of Dharma, this meaning is any phenomena which are under the control of negative emotions, negative actions are contaminated, and therefore by nature pain and suffering. That's why all contaminated phenomena are suffering. Now, when we say this, the question is, what is the purpose of recognizing suffering as a suffering? So again, we have to recognize and understand impermanent. Same thing. We have to understand suffering. Understand, recognize suffering. Recognize suffering as suffering, right? Suffering as suffering. What is the next step? Many people have this kind of hesitation, right? Or question. Is it really possible to diminish this suffering? Because as I said, in the ordinary life, what is life? Life is suffering and happiness, suffering, happiness like that, up and down like that. So is it really possible to diminish this suffering? Now you understand this. See, all of these questions, Buddha already answered, right? You understand that, right? In his teachings, the Four Noble Truths, remember? We talked many, many times this. But today we can also talk about for all of these questions, and this teaching, the third seal of Dharma, the third seal. When we understood this view, this seal, this truth in this way, we wish and we want for deliverance from the suffering of samsara. It's very natural. Because the spiritual practitioners who desire to look for the liberation, enlightenment from samsara must develop a profound recognition of suffering. That is the point. Now, we're talking about suffering, pain, right? Contaminate. This is what I think. If I share my experience with you, this is what I think. It is very important. How do I say? It is very important to prevent your suffering by not creating the cause of suffering, right? Buddha said that. Not creating cause of suffering. You should do whatever you can to prevent your suffering. Very important. That is the second noble truth, right? So make sure that you are not creating cause of suffering. Try to prevent your suffering. Okay, as we understand that. But if you cannot, and you are already experiencing suffering, then what should we do? Then I think it is very important to accept your suffering. Do not try to separate from your suffering. Accept your suffering. Otherwise, even if you just have a little bit of suffering, you will feel like, it is a huge amount of suffering. If you try to separate and ignore, this kind of suffering, then you will feel like more and more, it's bigger and bigger. This suffering really bothers you a lot. If you don't bring it into your life, you try to ignore it. It doesn't work that way. And if you develop this kind of habit, right, you are developing habit, so I'm suffering, even though it's just a little bit suffering, but you feel it's really big. So you develop this habit, and you will continue to experience small suffering as large and very disturbing sufferings that make you very unhappy. Very unhappy. And then you will become a very irritable person who is bothered by everything. Any circumstance, even though good things, is you don't like it, because you are making this, habit. You cannot do that. Otherwise, you know, um, you can't sort of, through this kind of action and idea, you cannot diminish your suffering. So instead, you should accept, as I said, accept your suffering. And Buddha said, Dungar lamchir. Dungar means suffering. Lamchir means carry, carry this kind of your situation, this suffering, carry sort of, you into your path, into your practice. Dungar lamchir. This is Buddhist idea, You should work with your suffering. Don't separate yourself from your suffering and discomfort, whether it's inside or outside or whatever. This will never give you relief from these difficult circumstances. So Dungar Lamchir is Kardamba masters. They always say that Dungar Lamchir, means, you should bring your suffering onto the path. That is it, that is onto the path. Dungar Lamchir means you carry the suffering into your path. Then slowly it will diminish without too much effort, The other day I talked about the student, and it's very difficult to meditate. When you meditate, so many different problems. I said, you have to bring it all this, where this comes from, your problems, or all of this discomfort, you have to bring that into your practice. And no, I don't want to think about it. I think that's not only, but many people, like ordinary people, really, they don't want to think about suffering and all this kind of thing. That's not good idea. If you want to diminish your suffering, you have to work with it and bring it into your path. I think that's Kardamba's master's instructions. It's very profound. Dungar Lam chair. It's very nice. And that's when you are experiencing suffering, right? How you do about the suffering. Even now, we have happiness too. And another important is, even if you are experiencing happiness, I think you should recognize, very important though, recognize your happiness, that you are happy. And then if you know someone else suffer, you can bring their experience into your path. And incorporate it into your practice. And dedicate your happiness for them. Why you do this? So that you don't waste your happiness. You use it, your happiness, right? Your happiness become a virtue. That's usually I do. When I feel always happy, I'm happy. Or should I do this? Oh yeah, this is, you have to dedicate. First, you have to recognize your happiness, and then you think about every morning when you wake up. Don't jump up right away from your bed, and just to relax there. I do it, just relax there. Okay, today is fresh day. And then you think about all these animals, and they're going to kill, And many other beings are suffering. You should bring that thing kind of situation into your mind, and then you dedicate. Before you practice, you correct your motivation. Make sure that your practice is only for yourself, not that. So so then you really thinking others. So our life is just, I mentioned, I said that, either suffering and happy, right? Happy, suffering, happy. So both you can do this. If you are suffering, you can also, your suffering bring into your path, your meditation, your practice, your happiness also transform, into virtue, dedicate for other who are suffering. So now you understand, right? Now you understand the contaminated phenomena are suffering, pain. Do you understand what it means? Contaminated, this means, all your actions, all your negative thoughts, everything like that, right? Motivated, selfishness, right? Attachment, ignorance. Ignorance, we all have ignorance. I don't want to use ignorance, but we're not wake up. Buddha said, one teaching is very profound. Buddha said, wake up. Means like he think we are sleeping. Even during the day, we're not sleeping, right? But he said, wake up, wake up. Don't sleep in ignorance. So any situation, any phenomena, right? Under the, just as I said, yang wang, you have to understand that yang wang means others, control others. Then suffering, our life suffering. Others doesn't mean others, somebody. Inside these defilements, emotions, and all of that, this contaminated means impure. Then we're suffering. So therefore, so we're suffering. When we suffer, you have to accept yours. The suffering is, again, it's nature, it's reality, part of our life. So you have to recognize this nature and kind of, bring into your practice rather than ignore, and separate. You cannot separate your suffering because the suffering is not outside there. It's inside somewhere. You're suffering. You feel you are suffering. So you have to, you can't ignore it. It doesn't go anywhere. So now this is the second the seal of Dharma. This is how you meditate on this second seal of Dharma. There are 3 steps. The first step is called recognition. Just as I said, you have to recognize you are suffering. We are suffering. We are suffering until achieve enlightenment. People say, I'm not suffering. I don't want to practice. I'm fine. Everything, there's nothing concerned that, about my situation. Everything is good. No, you think about this. At least there's so many different sufferings, but at least like there's 3, right? Suffering of suffering. We don't have that, fortunately. Suffering of change, we have that. Suffering of purpose suffering, we have that everywhere, right? So that means we are suffering. So that means you have to recognize you are suffering. You are suffer a lot or just a little bit. It doesn't matter. Because your suffering needs to be recognized. Remember, Buddha said in Second Noble Truth, you have to recognize. And you say, this is my suffering. See, this is my suffering. And then you say, I will take care of it, right? So you have to recognize it, and then I will take care of, don't worry. I will take care of my suffering, take care of my suffering, don't worry. That's your recognition. First step. And the second step is called realization. This time you have to know what kind of solution you need for diminish your suffering. Then you will know. The best solution is just as I said, you have to accept your suffering, work with it. Then you will know how to end of your suffering, diminish your suffering. Then you have to practice, right? You have to practice. Because you have see the good realization, you have recognition, the first step, and then you have a realization. This realization is your solution. So then you have, these good solutions to the problem. So then that's the second realization is very important. And then third step is we call encouragement, right? This is your confident faith, your confident interest in, or this devotion. So this is your truth, right? So you need to sort of open yourself so that the teachings will go through your own sort of understanding, develop your wisdom. Very important. Encouragement is very important. It puts you into practice. It makes you practice. So you have this third step, then keep going. Doesn't matter, sometimes good practice, sometimes bad practice. Doesn't matter, that's fine. But keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't stop, keep going. So Buddha said, I have seen that all beings are capable with the nature of awakening. So that's why he said, wake up. The essence of disturbing emotion and suffering is the ultimate nature, and it is the truth. It is the truth. So, do you understand? Very important.
It sounds like what you're saying is that it doesn't matter if you have suffering or if you have happiness, because when things are always changing, your suffering can be the gateway to the wisdom that causes the change, which leads to happiness.
As soon as you accept your suffering. So people can't accept, though. People can't accept their suffering. That's the problem, I think, right? In order to accept your suffering, you need patience, right? All these amazing instructions, all these are related to each other. You need a wisdom, so important. Wisdom, Buddhist point of view, wisdom is the most important. In order to have a wisdom, you need a correct view. In order to have a correct view, you have to investigate and believe in this certainty. And then you have to accept your suffering, happiness. You have to really open yourself. So, most, people like Buddhist practitioners, really, I think, have a good life. Because of this kind of wisdom, understanding, the knowledge. So the essence of this teaching, the second seal of Dharma, just as I said, you understand the result of this sort of defilements, negative emotions, all of this is suffering, pain, right? You understand that. But the essence of this teaching is, if we are suffering, what should we do with it? That's why I'm saying you have to dungar lamchir again in Tibet. How to say that in English? Dungar lamchir. You carry, right? Dungar, this suffering, you carry this suffering into your path. Is that correct? That makes sense? Okay. Very powerful this in Tibetan, Dungar lamchir is. Most people can't do it. If you can't do this, you are probably kind of Kadamba master's student, They do that. Dungar? Yep. Sanskrit, dukkha, right? Dukkha is dungar, means suffering. Okay, now I would like you, now we should meditate, because the first session we didn't have last time, so I talked too much. So this time we should a little bit meditate more. This time, what is it? What is our teaching? This time is the suffering, right? About the suffering, all contaminated, all the negative, the emotions are pain, right? This contaminated suffering. So suffering, it's really good to practice this giving and taking a little bit. I wanted you to two different practice and meditate in this session, okay? The first of all, I want you to give you a practice that you really can really help when you are unhappy or suffering from emotions. Even if you practice meditation, you will have emotional pain and suffering, right? And a lot of things from your past, and this life arise that will be difficult to face, So what you need is the Kardamba masters, they call it this meditation, transforming both happiness and suffering into the path. Chidduk lamchir again. Chid means happiness, duk is suffering, lamchir means carry on to path. What does that mean? That means visualize, first of all, most are, as you're Buddhist, so you visualize your spiritual being, your enlightened being, Buddha or whatever, in front of you. So you have to pray to sort of whichever enlightened beings inspires you the most. Very important. Which is why you do this, which is represent your enlightenment, your liberation, your protection, your refuge, and your Buddha nature. Innerly, secretly, this is your Buddha nature. Outwardly, this is your the protector, refuge. And then this is represent your enlightenment. So you have to visualize that. And then open your heart and imagine kind of very, very beautiful rays of light from your this spiritual enlightened being. And this light represent your spiritual being's love and compassion and, wisdom. Then the light dissolve into your heart and transform all your negative, these feelings and emotions into relaxation and peacefulness. Then you just relax there. Right? You visualize this and then dissolve into you, and then this makes you very relaxed. And you relax just there. And then again, also you can think about whoever you know that is suffering, difficult situation. You can also think about all that suffering and in this world. Not only yourself, but also think about everybody, just to visualize all of these kind of things. And then at the end, let your spiritual being dissolve into your mind. And then you look deeply into your nature, which is Buddha nature now you have. You recognize that there is a nature, sort of, what do you call it, this liminals, right, within your non-conceptual experience. You can look directly at that experience, and then it, relax there as much as you can. I think you can do that. So this is combination, what do you call it, the Guru Yoga practice and the take and give in practice, right? So kind of combination of this kind of practice. So you can do this two different practice, but you can make like, it's like one meditation. Do you understand? So that is what you do. If you want a little bit investigate about a situation, about the suffering, contaminated, you can. Otherwise, just try to search your Buddha nature. Try to discover it. And once you understand, then you just relax on there. And that point, there is no suffering, and then there is no happiness. It's just this peace. That's it. So you have to relax on that. Okay, a few minutes. Do you understand this instruction? Good. So you just to relax. If you want to take a break, you can, and then after that, come back, your meditation. Your mind wander away many times. Your body is uncomfortable. At that time you can say Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. You can say like that, Namo. And then you visualize this Namo Buddhaya, these syllables, visualize tip of your nose and these syllables go back and forth with your breath. At the same time you say Namo Buddhaya, say it, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Then you visualize all these syllables back and forth from your nose, and then you forget your discomfort, your body, and you forget your mind. Your mind is there. Otherwise, so Namo Buddhaya, 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 Namo Buddhaya. And you relax, dissolve your Buddha into your Buddha nature, and then you relax, open your eyes. And there's nothing to meditate, but there's nothing wandering also. Just you are there. You experience this present moment. There's nothing meditational. That's it. That's you're here. All right. Thank you.